Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's event and our next installment of the Road to Conference. I am Willie Santiago, the Manager of Programs and Resources for APAP. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a fair-skinned Hispanic person with brown eyes, medium-length wavy brown hair, and I'm wearing a black-collared shirt with a gold brooch. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge APAP is located in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway, the Anacostan, and Pamunkey people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations, and I would like to pay my respect to the elders both past, present, and future. Closed captioning is available for today's event, and we are also joined by ASL interpreters from Purple, Lindsay Gherkin and Michelle Clark. If there are further accommodations that you need for today's session, please feel free to direct message me, and I will do my best to assist you. I will now turn things over to Neo Narner-Madison, our Director of Operations and Events, and Krista Bradley, our Director of Programs and Resources.
Thanks so much, Willie. Hi, everybody. It's good to have you here. Neo is here, but her audio is not working. So I am going to take this on. Today we'll be joined from the APAP team, myself as Director of Programs and Resources. JG Decker is here, our Senior Associate for Resources and Events. Neo Narner-Madison, our Director of Operations and Events, and of course, Willie Santiago, our Manager of Programs and Resources. We also have a wonderful panel of colleagues and peers that we'll get to and talk with shortly. Next slide. So you know who's in the room for us. We'd love to know who's here with us. So if you would be so kind to introduce yourself in the chat, put your name and where you're coming from, that would be fantastic so we can see who's in the room. And then we also want to just get a better sense of the makeup of everyone here. Willie, are you ready to be able to do a poll?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so after you put your intros in the chat, we're going to put up the first poll, which is just to get a sense of, do you count yourself as a veteran, as proficient, as newbie for the APAP conference? Oh, sorry, the first question is different. It's your role in the field. Sorry.
Yep.
So, who are you? What's your role in the field?
Yep. And Krista has all three questions up.
Oh, it does. Okay. We'll just answer all the questions. Asking about your role in the field. We're asking about how proficient and comfortable you are with the APAP conference in general, so we know, get a sense of where you might want or desire more information. And then how many APAP conferences have you been to? Um, so, all right, we're just about to wind up on the end of that poll. Um, while we're waiting for folks to finish entering that information, I want to encourage you to put questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring that and we'll be having time to answer those questions both at the end and in real time in case you need to, and we don't want you to forget what the question is that you asked, so we can respond to you there. And then I'm just going to walk us through the agenda for today, and then we'll get started. I think it doesn't look like more people are filling out the poll, so maybe we can go ahead and close that and see the results. So, are we seeing the results right now? It looks like a good number of folks here are artists. Is that right? A little under half. And then about 15% are agents and managers. We have a few producers. Thanks for representing. And a number of our presenters are here along with other arts professionals. Fantastic. What about the next set of results? Do we have a sense of
44% identified as being a newbie, so 0 to 3 years. 8% as proficient, 4 to 9, and then 48% as veterans, 10 plus years.
Great. So we have a good mix of newbies and veterans. So while we have our colleagues here on the panel, we also have a great community of folks that we can tap as well. So that's wonderful to hear.
Mhm.
And then finally, was there one more?
Yep, there was a how many conferences have you attended? So I listed 1 to 3, but this is also encompasses 0 to 3. 64% is within the first 3 years. 9% is 3 to 10, and then 27% is 10 years or more.
Fantastic. This is a really, really good group that we can learn from each other and notice that there's a good number of people who are new and are coming for the first time or have only come for a few times. So this is great. We're interested in sharing our knowledge, but we're also interested in hearing what your experience has been. So that's how we get better when newcomers come to the conference and we find new ways to better serve your needs. So great. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to go through a bit about what is APAP NYC, which is the name of our conference. Who is APAP NYC for? Then we're going to walk you through how to exhibit and how to participate in the EXPO Commons and the nitty-gritty of that. And then we'll have a chance to talk with our peer panel and talk through how and why they participate in the EXPO Commons and how it plays a role in their work and tips and tricks that they've discovered and created over the years to help them navigate and make the most out of their time. And then we'll have a Q&A with the panel and with you all. And no question is off the table and nothing is a stupid question. So just know that. And then we'll go through next steps and let you know about some key dates and other things that are coming up. Let's see. So one thing that it's being suggested to me that you might want to put your Zoom in multi-speaker view in case you want to be able to see all of us. I'm not sure if we're just focusing on the ASL interpreter, but if you don't know how to do that, you can just I think it's up in the upper right-hand corner about the way that you can change your options. And Willie, if you could put directions in the chat on how to do that in case folks might need that, that would be great.
Can do.
Thank you. All right, well, let's get started then with the agenda. But what is APAP? So one more advance, please. Oh, the slide. Great. So APAP NYC is the world's largest gathering of the performing arts presenting, booking, and touring industry. It's the annual members conference of APAP, the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. It takes place every year for about 5 days in January, and this next year will be January 10th through the 14th in the New York Hilton and across the entire city. Everything that we do there is not limited to the Hilton, but across the city. Next slide. I should tell you that there are a couple of things that are part of the APAP conference, right? So we have these 4 pillars that we lean into for thinking about the conference. The APAP conference is about community. It's about the community of individuals, colleagues, members of our ecosystem that are able to come together in one place to be able to learn together and address issues together, to network, and to build community. And find your people that have a similar experience as you may have. It's also about commerce. This gathering is where the industry gathers to be able to make connections and book shows and to be booked by presenters, to make connections about works that are being developed and to find colleagues and partners on how to make those things happen. A lot of the folks that attend, this is the largest opportunity for them to make their living. And so commerce is a very large part of the APAP NYC gathering. A third large part is the learning that we do. This is the time when the industry comes together and identifies what are the key issues that are impacting all of us. What are the trends that are happening across the industry that you need to be aware of, or what's the news and information around the context that we're working within and that we need to be aware of to navigate and do our work well, or do it better, or to find new ways of doing it. And then finally, the fourth pillar for APAP NYC is discovery. And we take this seriously. It's an opportunity for everyone to discover colleagues, artists, work that they didn't know about. And we encourage people to take the opportunities to do that and not only visit, see, gather with the people that they know, but to really take a chance and opportunity to be surprised and discover colleagues and work that they might not have known in beforehand. Great, next slide. So out of those four pillars, we have these key elements. We have a lot of networking and affinity groups, which are the ways that we build community in many ways. We have over 1,000 showcases of live artists happening all throughout the city, both at the Hilton and at various venues across the city. We have professional development, which is the kind of the focus of our learning opportunities. It includes plenaries, but also sessions that happen over the weekend and around particular tracks or themes that are happening at conference and that's happening in the field. And then EXPO Commons, obviously, that's what our focus is in today, which is really the EXPO Hall, where there are booths and artists and agents and managers who are there to share their roster, their work, and to meet and connect with curators and programmers and talent bookers. We also have other events that happen in the EXPO Commons to foster discovery of work and people. And then we have other kind of specific special events that happen throughout the 5 days. Up next is a discovery session of work that is ready to tour. We also have up next works in progress, which is work and artists that have pieces that they are looking for collaborators and help developing those works. We have 5 Minutes to Shine, which is a celebration of all things that are happening that are new and novel in the field. And then we have APAP Honors Breakfast on Monday, which honors people that have made a really significant difference in our industry or with APAP that we want to celebrate. And then new last year is also our mentor exchange. On Monday, we do a series of mentor gatherings, both a peer-to-peer for emerging students that want to find their way into the field and veteran folks that meet with them. And then we have a mentor exchange live session with some luminaries from the field sharing their expertise and their learning along with mid-career and emerging leaders talking about leadership and then having an open forum for everybody to be able to access that. So those are the key elements, and it's a busy time, but it's a rich time. So if you haven't yet decided that you're coming, hopefully this is part of the reasons why you should be making that decision. Next slide, please. The APAP conference is developed in partnership with great leadership from across the field. We have these 5 co-chairs that are our team leads and that help the staff direct and conceive and shape the conference. Chisi Yamaguchi from Sozo Artists, Laura Sweet from Des Moines Performing Arts Center, Mark Wilson from Zoellner Art Center at Lehigh University, Sarah Hogg, who's an artist and an owner of Rhythmwood Drive, and Sarah Saltwick, our co-director of Holden and Arts Associates, who is with us today. That group is supported, and we are supported with a full conference committee. Next slide, please. And you can see their names here, ranging from all parts of the country. Other folks like Andy Casano, Joshua Dalladoni from Calgary, and some number of agents. I'm not going to read through all the names here, but hopefully you see that you are well represented by fellow artists, fellow producers, fellow agents and managers, people that are not curators or programmers, but play a different role in the arts worker field. And people that have been in the field for a long time or that are emerging leaders and mid-career leaders. So we try to have a committee that is representative of the field to help us shape what kinds of things you want to hear and talk about at conference. Thank you. Next slide. I think that, one more thing. We have put this as a separate slide because we have leaned in even more so than in the past around our efforts to make this conference and our work in general more accessible to individuals so that they can show up as their first full self at our events. And so we recognize that the importance of leading with a people first and relationship-based approach in our practice. So we have a number of new and expanded offerings for accessibility this year. We'll have on-site accessibility team available during all conference hours. There's accessible signage. We have a fully accessible on-site space for wheelchair users and others with mobility needs that includes both showcases on-site at the Hilton and the EXPO Commons and gathering spaces. We have water for everyone. We offer stimulus-free quiet spaces. It can be a lot at conference to be surrounded by a lot of people all the time and a lot of noise. So we know that people need to take a break, and those were very popular last year. So we have expanded the use of those spaces. We have gender inclusive, chair accessible, and companion restrooms available. We will have open captioning for all of our primary sessions, and we'll have ASL for primary sessions by request. We also will have lactation and nursing pods and a dedicated accessibility team during Expo hours in the Expo. Prior to the conference, we are starting and have an open way to gather what your accessibility needs are, and we'll be coordinating those efforts prior and leading up to conference. We also are working this year in a different way by providing accessibility coordination with producers for offsite showcases. We heard that that was an important piece that we needed to beef up, so we are. And then we have individualized assistance and coordination upon request. At some point, Willie, maybe we can put the link of the accessibility intake form in the chat. And if you are so moved, please feel free to fill that out. And please share this information and these opportunities available with your colleagues. We are trying to make it clear and communicate more often that we have these services available so that people know that they can plan to be there and know what to expect. Okay. Wonderful. I think that we are now ready to talk about who attends APAP NYC. And I think for this, I'm going to turn it over to Neo, Norner Madison.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Nice to be with you all. Next slide, please. Okay. APAP NYC is for arts professionals working in the performing arts, booking, and touring field. APAP's members are presenters, agents, managers, touring artists, producers, and other performing arts professionals in the booking, presenting, and touring industry. We have attendees with us at the conference from all parts of the U.S., as well as 31 countries abroad. And as a reminder, APAP NYC is a members-only conference. We do have membership rates that range from artist rates to organizational membership options. We have individual options, and for this year's conference, we also have day rates that will be available on site should you choose to be with us for not the entire conference. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to move on to how to participate in the EXPO Commons. Next slide. Okay, the first thing you would need to do is register for the conference and then purchase a booth. At this point in our conference season, we have a little over 60 booth spaces remaining available for purchase. As a reminder, each organization can purchase up to 2 booth spaces, and our spaces are 8 by 10, and each space is $8.95. An exhibitor is purchasing 1 booth space may purchase up to 3 booth badges at $2.95 each. Exhibitors purchasing 2 booth spaces may purchase up to 7 booth badges, also at $2.95. As a reminder, I'd like to share that we do have an artist rate of $2.25 that is also available for artists that may be coming to the conference that are not going to be working the booth but would like to participate. That rate is also available. Also, if you are the primary purchaser of your booth, you are not required to have a booth badge. The booth badge would be for your colleagues attending the conference. And the booth badge is considered a full registration, meaning you have access to the entire conference. Next slide, please. Okay. With the purchase of your booth, you will also have a virtual landing page, which is on APAP's online platform and on our app. If you have exhibited with APAP in the last year, the information on your landing page will be preloaded into the virtual platform. You can make edits for your current information, but you will have a starting point. And your landing page will feature information like artist rosters, videos of performance, and links to your website, as well as mapping out your location within the EXPO Commons so that everyone participating can easily find you. Next slide, please. Promoting your exhibit space. APAP NYC is largely about networking. In your exhibit space, you can increase your brand recognition, perhaps by doing additional advertising and sponsorship with APAP. We will put a link in the chat to where you can find out more information about sponsorship and advertising opportunities that remain available. You can also use the APAP attendee list to connect with attendees in advance of the conference. Starting tomorrow, this Thursday, registered attendees will receive the attendee list of all members that are registered at this point, and that will start tomorrow and be ongoing through the conference. We'll talk a bit later about best practices for using the attendee list. We also have an interactive map that is on the conference platform. You can see a rendering there. So there's a map of each floor of the Expo Hall, and it is interactive. You would be able to click on a booth and find out about more information about that booth, and also a bit of a wayfinding support to get you from point A to point B while you're trying to navigate all 3 floors of the exhibit space. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Before we get to our panel, I wanted to also share that all exhibitors are welcome to utilize our exhibitor kit for more information about load in and load out and those details on site. That exhibitor kit will be emailed to all exhibitors starting next week. And so again, it'll have information about furniture, rentals from our show decorator partner, which is GES, and about which furniture you can bring in on your own to your booth. It'll also have information about electricity that's available and internet for purchase through our Hilton partner, which is Encore AV. For more information on exhibits, you can reach out to the team at APAP NYC at apap365.org, and we will drop that in the chat as well. With that, I'm going to pause and turn things back over to Krista to introduce our panel, and I'll be with you again for Q&A at the close of our session. Thank you.
Thanks, Neo. And again, if you all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah, and I'll get to those right after our conversation. So we have a great peer panel, as I mentioned today, and we're going to talk about how and why they participate in the EXPO Commons. First is Ken Waldman, a musician and poet, a self-represented artist, and a veteran booth hoster in the EXPO Commons. Steve Hoffman is the executive director of the Norton Center for the Arts and is a longtime presenter who has been coming to the conference for a while and has been a member of the conference committee in the past and just an incredible resource. Sandy Garcia is director of booking and artist representation at Pentacle, longtime agent and manager and incredibly respected in the field. And Sarah Saltwick, our co-director of Holden and Arts Associates, is one of our co-chairs, is a leader in the field of family programming and another longtime veteran as an agent in the field and incredibly well respected too. So we're so lucky to have them here, and along with the folks that are in the audience who are, you've got a lot of your colleagues that are longtime veterans in the field here. So we have a great conversation coming up. Let's move and let's open it up to them. I don't see you, but I'm sure that you're here. Thank you, panel, for being here. I wonder if we can go through a first round and just have you all introduce yourselves a bit and say, where are you based? What do you do, or what your organization is about? And that will give people an opportunity to get to know who you are before we get into the meat of things and how and why you use the EXPO Commons. So why don't we kick it off with you, Sandy?
Great. Thank you, Krista. My name is Sandy Garcia, pronouns she, her. I work with Pentacle. It's a nonprofit dance organization. We also represent dance artists, primarily is my roster. I have a roster of 8 artists. Have been coming to Pentacle have been coming to APAP as a part of Pentacle. I guess now it's going to be my 8th year. And prior to that, I was working with Rena Shake and Associates, another dance agency. I had worked with her for 10 years. And prior to that, had attended the conference on a presenter capacity while I was working at Masmoka. So have been able to experience the conference from various sides, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you.
Sandy, Steve?
Hello, I'm Steve Hoffman. I'm the executive director of the Norton Center for the Arts at Center College. It's a multidisciplinary performing arts and visual arts center, and we have a 1,470-seat theater and a 370-seat theater. I have been attending arts presenters or arts professionals since it was arts presenters. Actually, I've attended conferences every year since 1991. You can do the math. And I co-chaired the 2009 conference and also the 2010 conference because no good deed goes unpunished. So.
Thank you, Steve. Sarah?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Saltwick, one of the co-directors at Holden and Arts Associates. Pronouns are she, hers. We're based in Austin, Texas, and specialize in youth and family programming, a lot of theater, as well as some music, some international artists, as well as US artists. And I think this will be my 17th APAP, although I may have missed one or two along the way when I was in grad school. But I've been coming to the conference for a long time and am one of this year's co-chairs and was co-chair last year as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Last but not least, Ken, please.
Yeah, Ken Waldman, officially based in Anchorage, Alaska. I've been Alaska's fiddling poet that has morphed into Ken Waldman Nomadic Productions. A lot of us wear a lot of different hats here. I started attending APAP in 2006, and here we are, 2024. And I think about the time when Sarah sounds like when she started coming to this. So, and I'll talk more later, but I see some people in the chat who I know in various ways. Longer, like the idea of community is big, and I'll talk more later.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I guess I'll just kick it off, and please feel free to just jump in and answer in the order that makes the most sense to you all when you have something to share. But just thinking about your role in the field, how and why do you come to APAP, and how and why do you use the EXPO Commons to advance or strengthen your work?
I just was talking, I can talk some more. I'm often on the periphery. I'm often a contrarian, and the folks who are self-represented artists may be able to understand. Actually, I feel like I'm under false pretense. I'm taking advantage of what Neo had said with the artist rate. It's $225 to be at APAP to attend the conference as an artist without having a booth. I had a booth from 2006 to 2019. Then there was pandemic time, and on the other side, I'm established enough, and I also produce a showcase, which is part of how I do this, that other conferences, I do have booths, I have tables, and I'd recommend for anybody, if this is their first time coming, to attend, if you can, at one of the regional conferences first, just to get an idea of what you're doing, because you're going to have 3 floors of booths, and it's big. But I can talk more later about how I've maneuvered and how I continue to maneuver and make the conference work. I pick up jobs, which is part of why I attend too, every time I come through. So, but this year actually I don't have a booth, but I can talk about self-represented why and how to do it.
That's great, Ken, and thank you for underscoring that there are different ways to APAP, and we like to always say that, so this is a really good example of that.
So as an agent, we've had a booth every time I've been at APAP. I love our little booth. I really treasure it, and we're across the way from Sandy. And to me, it is just like our home during the conference. So we do a lot of meetings with different venues, a lot of folks we already know, as well as always reaching out to new folks. We have people walk up to our booth. So we have one brochure that has all of our artists in it. We also do a lot of work that's based in literature. So we'll have copies of those books. We have a big banner with our company name, and then some pop-up banners that have different production photos. So the hope is that if you're walking by, that's going to catch your eye, and it's going to tell you something about our roster of artists. And so hopefully there might be 1 or 2 things that catch somebody's interest. And I really like having that focused time to sit down and talk with someone. I enjoy all the other programming parts and all the other pillars of APAP, but our job during this conference is really to connect with venues and to help book dates for our artists. And the EXPO Hall is like the golden time to do that. And yeah, that's what I sort of focus on first. I do my meetings with the EXPO Hall. I used to do 30-minute meetings every 30 minutes. I've recently gone to 15-minute meetings just because I found there was a lot of folks I wanted to talk to at the conference. It's harder to do 15 minutes. I would recommend sort of a 30-minute meeting plan, especially if you're starting out, to leave yourself time for walk-ups. For folks will be running late, and it's a little bit more of a natural schedule. And then, yeah, here's our little brochure that we hand out. So this has, a page on each of our artists, And it's a nice thing that somebody can take with them. Back in the day, we would do bigger press kits or sort of one sheets on every artist, and which some folks still do, but we've gone to this one piece about everybody, and that's worked really well. And it's also nice in our meetings, even for the walk-ups, to like have a prop so we can open it up and talk about different images, because people are so visual, that we found having that visual aid is great.
Okay, I'll share next. So we're always seated across the Holden Arts ladies, which I love. It's almost like every year you know who you're going to see and who you're going to connect with again. So it's really wonderful to be in that exhibit space. Sharing a little bit about Sarah's comments on the meetings, where I do feel like sometimes you can, in some instances, you can actually accomplish what you need to do in that 15-minute like block and really keep it focused. And I feel that perhaps, I guess sometimes it sort of depends on where you're at with the conversation as well. Like oftentimes if I'm meeting with a presenter for the very first time, I want to be able to get to know their organization a little bit better, ask more questions about what their venue is like, who their audience is, who have they been programming. I mean, some of that you should have already researched ahead of time, but having that interaction and that conversation with them ahead of time or during the meeting really helps be able to establish that back and forth and that relationship and understanding. Okay, so now that I know a little bit more about your organization from your words, these are the companies that I think could be really great, or I want to be able to introduce all of the companies to you at this point. So I think depending on your relationship or how much you already are familiar with that presenter, that range, kind of setting yourself up within that, your appointment running time would be really helpful. Also, we definitely do, and I don't have it with me, but a one sheet of, oh, actually I do. So we do have, it's this one sheet of all of the companies. We used to like do brochures, but realizing that sort of more and more people are less willing to take things with them, that it's nice to have something that's a visual to get people to identify what the companies are. We also do individual one sheets for the companies with a QR code that are printed out just in case somebody wants a tangible document, and it's not like super expensive. But also then the follow-up is where we then send out a digital version of that information and a summary. So the first part is really just that initial meeting, but the follow-up afterwards is part of the additional work that takes place, where it's not just, you know, the conference, you're done and you're set. There are other things that you and other resources that APAP provides you to be able to do that work that continues following the conference.
I guess I am the lone presenter, so I will share why I find APAP, the conference, and APAP valuable, as well as the EXPO Commons, the EXPO Hall. I really treat this conference, and especially the EXPO Hall, as my research and development. And if you think about it, we are gathering information. This business is all about buying and selling, and it's all about relationships. And if we're curating a season, I'm looking far, far ahead. I'm talking with people to learn what's out there. And I do say, can I get a one sheet? I take copious notes. I keep a little notebook with me. And I write notes so that after the conference, I go back and I put everything in my spreadsheet, and I can start ranking what sounds most interesting, what I want to pursue, what's good for another time, maybe in another year. But I think broad with this. I think about what my season is going to look like, that we typically have one or two Broadway, we have dance, we have classical, we have jazz. So starting to shape that and see what's going to start coming together for a season. So I use the conference as research and development, and I have specific meetings with some people and to talk about artists that I'm interested in. I also keep an open mind, and I want to know what you're bringing, even if it's not something that's in my wheelhouse or something I would present. I want to know about it, because something might change in that direction, and within my organization might change, and I might change positions. And if I go to a different organization, being able to still know what is out there will be really to my favor and to my benefit. And that helps me as a curator to know what's going on. I also keep time open in my schedule. I also set 15 and 30-minute meetings. 15 if it's pretty new, or I just need a flyby. I need to say hi. I want to see someone again and have a quick conversation. 30 if we're talking about specific artists, they have a larger roster and I want to learn more about their full roster. Anything beyond that sometimes is just too much. And then I don't keep meetings all the time because I want to be able to go to the booths that I don't know about and go to the artists that I've never heard of. I've I have had opportunities to present some real gems that just they're not represented. They're on their own. They might be new to APAP or to the conference, and I was thrilled to be. They were hungry. They wanted to work. I saw something in them, and if that helps develop an artist career as well, that's something that's really important to me. And I can get into the nuts and bolts of how I do the expo later.
You so much. That's great. I want to have some follow-up questions to some of the things that you all mentioned. Sandy and Sarah, you both mentioned the materials that you use. And I'm curious about the digital assets that you also maybe utilize as booth holders. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and how you use those tools to prep or to follow up, like QR codes or other things?
Sarah, I'm going to ask you about video because I think you all use video at your booth, right? You don't. Okay. Because, well, I guess there's a question like when you have your booth set up and what it is that you're offering. So video, I do see some folks use video, and that in some instances it's very useful, especially also for music agents or music artists, that you're able to kind of set up the headphones setup and everything. For me, when I've tried to do that, I feel like I stumble more than actually use it effectively. So it's better for me, at least unless there's some sort of footage that I have on my phone that I can kind of just give a sneak peek of like something that's a snapshot. I don't use video as much. But again, there are different ways of doing this. There are some agents and managers that like know how to work it properly and are able to really talk and present their work in a beautiful way with the video. And that's great for them. For me, it's just, it doesn't work for me. We do use QR codes in our one sheets. We don't like it. Those things have been wonderful, just to be able to pack on a lot of information and the website link and all of that within one QR code and not have to do like the digital drives or back in the day when you had that folder with like printed reviews and glossy photos and all of that stuff. So the QR codes have really been amazing. And if you are an artist, someone with a limited budget, to be able to like use those handily, like you can have just a little postcard with a beautiful image and a QR code and just hand those out everywhere, leave them out like crazy. I think that's been a really useful tool.
Yeah, we include a QR code in the back of our brochure that takes folks to our website where we've got more tech information and video. We don't play video in our booth. I think for us it would be distracting, but so our sort of supplemental materials are those different books, and then just production images.
I was just going to add, as someone who's gathering all of this information and you're amidst hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and it's really noisy and there's distractions everywhere you look, just trying to stay focused with a person is my key. People ask if I want to see a video and I pass because I'll be half an hour later and someone will say, name 2 of the agents you met with in the last half an hour. I won't be able to. I can look in my book, but it's just go, 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 go. And I'm in the zone where I am in the present and looking forward, and I'm not looking back. And the videos are really hard for me to retain that information, especially when there's so much going on. Getting something tangible, especially if I'm interested in a particular artist from a roster, is so important, again, to me, because digital gets lost and my emails just get longer and longer and I don't get back to them. But if I have a postcard, if I have a flyer, I start putting things together and I can see how things are going to shape in a very visual way. So that is really helpful for me to have something like that.
Awesome. I also just want to underscore a few things that people said about relationship building and discovery and community. So that's, you've heard some examples of how everyone here on the panel meets with people that they know, but they also leave space for people to get to know people. And that's just, I want to underscore that because I think that's really an important point. And also that you never know who and how those meetings are going to turn into something in the future. I think Ken referred to this, about relationship building, and Steve did as well. Like people move around, and we've seen a lot of moving and shifting in our field. So people that are in one position. Maybe in a presenter one day, like Sandy, I didn't know that she was at Mass Boca until just today. And I've known her for like 15 years. And that they might become, an agent. Or, Steve is president, I think he's still president of the Kentucky Presenters Network. So if he sees something, he's going to be talking to his fellow presenters in the state. And he's going to know what they do, what their sides of the hall is, maybe that like what their aesthetic is. So he's also a resource for them. So just keep that in mind that you never know how those kind of interactions will play out. And this is a long game field. And the building of relationships really, really important in the short and long term. So I know we have some questions. We're going to hold for that. But I do want to offer and ask you all like some tips and tricks about, how do you prepare? How do you navigate this marathon of the gathering that we do? Love to give you an opportunity to share that, Ken.
Yeah, I can talk once again something that Steve said, like all I need are flybys because when I did have a booth, half hour, there was never a reason or even 15 minutes. I just need to just see somebody and say, are we going to be able to talk at some point for next year or the year after? And that's all I really needed. So I don't really need the booth so much, but I do and continue to do a lot of research ahead of time. And the idea of clutter, I wanted to mention too, that not only clutter in the exhibit hall, but the clutter beforehand. Steve can say how many emails he's getting and how many, and Krista, who, you were a presenter for a long time, how many emails you get beforehand. And I try never to, the next email blast I do will be my first, but I do specific emails after sending. I send envelopes, hand addressed. I have these cards in there with poems on them, and I have my schedule. I have some of the things I do. I try to personalize everything, and I do the research ahead of time with the list that Neil was saying that you're going to be getting. I look up everybody, even the people I know, just that as Steve wants to like talk with people that he knows. I look up and see who is being brought to a venue this year, how I might or might not fit, so that I don't have to reach out to everybody when I see it's not a fit. But when there is a possible fit, I'm looking it up, and then I'm looking at the badges if I've never met them before. But I've sent an envelope, I've sent an email, and just not being pushy, but just saying, I hope to run into you. And if I do, I could just do a quick hello, and that may be enough. And it doesn't have to be now in the exhibit hall, but the whole conference. There's the opening reception. There are some of the affinity groups. You're always possibly running into people. So but I do a lot of research ahead of time. Continue to do that.
While this
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, while this is a cutthroat business and everyone's trying to like have that exchange and book something and have something on your season. Um, it's great to be able to work with agents and managers and say, hey, we have a theme this year, or the college I'm working with has a specific project that they're working on, and I need to find an artist or speaker or something to connect with it. So being able to talk about that with someone who maybe makes sense after I look at people's rosters, and then I say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Sometimes they're going to say, that's not for my artist, but I think you should go talk down the hall to Sarah or Sandy or Ken, and they will, unless they're, I don't know, unless they're mean girls, they should be giving information to share, because it goes both ways. And I just wanted to add that to what Ken was saying, that when you get to know somebody and you can ask them and say, this is what I'm looking for, that's very specific. If they don't have it, hopefully they're going to help you find it.
Thanks.
I think I'll also add to Ken's point and to your point, Krista, about this being a long game, and also that there are these other opportunities to meet people outside of when you're in the exhibit hall. When you're in the exhibit hall and people are in that space, I mean, when the presenter is in that space, they are shopping in a way, right? So you're developing a relationship, you're meeting them for the first time, but their intention to go into that space is to find out what artists are performing, what's the work, and shop, in a sense, become informed. If you are running into folks in a panel discussion or at a reception, I like to think that, like, you're there to meet folks, but you're not the presenter. Like, we need to be respectful in the idea that, like, they don't want to be holding on to a cocktail and having 5 different artists or agents come to them and pitching their next project that they're selling in that space. So in that sense, it's a great time to meet other people and to find out where they're coming from and what their organization offers, and making a note of it, of like, oh, we should connect in the future, or even just making a mental note. And then if you don't run into them again in the exhibit hall, there's always that follow-up that can happen later, because again, it's a long game. The sales that happens isn't always going to be then and there at the conference. The majority of all of that information will likely come in after the fact. So don't think that, like, having to come into the space, you're just like, I gotta sell, I gotta throw my cards at everyone, and like, give yourself that space and time and energy to know who the people are around you, what you can offer to them, but also what they can offer to you.
Yeah, Sandy, I think that's a really good point. And there are other little spots around like in front of the expo hall. And I think there's going to be a new little area in Rhinelander, where if you don't have a booth, that you could say, oh, meet me at one of these tables, or like, let's talk tomorrow afternoon. I'll be around. So you can still have some of the sort of like scheduled time, even without having the real estate of a booth. And yeah, I think to be connecting, to be sharing about what you do outside of the exhibit hall, but to not be doing the sales pitch in the same way, is like a thing to balance. And we'll make those interactions just more conversational and less pressure on them. My big tip is a tip for myself, which is to take better notes. My notes have been horrible. My notes from WA, which was like at a resort in San Diego, which was a beautiful place, were just like nonsense. And I was just like, oh no. Because you want, in your follow-up, you want to remember, who the person was, what you talked about, what the interests were. And sometimes some of the best conversations might be about something that's going on in their community. It's not related to your work or to the work, you're promoting. And so to take notes about different things you talked about, to look at that conversation at a conference as part of many more conversations. And if you take better notes, it's going to help. So telling myself, take better notes. I have these like little notepads, but I don't know, they're not, I just got it. Like, I think because you're in the moment, and then it can be hard to like write down a couple of different things, but to figure out a good note system is something that'll help. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for the questions that are in the chat and for colleagues that are answering them. That's wonderful to see. So thank you for that. I heard prepare. I just want to underscore the prep. I once had a nightmare when I was a presenter that I actually had done no preparation, and I woke up and I showed up at the first day of conference and didn't have anything prepped. It was one of those, it was a horrible nightmare, which I still remember. But so you don't want to do that. So you want to prep and and do the research in advance of the people that you're going to meet and what they do and who they present. And that's really, really critical because everyone wants to feel like, you've taken the time to actually get to know them and not just pitch the, spray and pray, like just pitch everyone and not thinking about all that. Steve, do you want to make a comment? Yeah.
Yeah. This conference is really about prioritizing and giving yourself grace because there is so much going on. There is no way you can do everything. There are so many booths in the conference that you can get to. There is no way you're going to get to all of them, period. And so prioritizing and trying, you're going to get emails. I get emails and postcards and phone calls, and I start trying to figure out how to put them together, who I need to speak with, who I have relationships with on an ongoing, who might end up being a lunch meeting versus a booth meeting. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Through 30 some years of attending this conference, what hit me one year, all of the agents and managers stand in their booth, and they are standing, and that's hard. That concrete floor is hard. And they're just there. When we're, as a presenter, I have learned to pick floors for days. So the first day of the conference, for the first block of the expo hall, I'm on the first floor, like Rhinelander 2. Is that no? Yeah. No, and then Rhinelander 3 the next day, and I think I have that backwards.
Rhinelander and America's Hall 1 and 2.
America's Halls 1 and 2. So those are the three halls, and I try to put them per day. And then within that, I try to look at the map where people are, what their booth is, because we're running. And if you have a 15-minute meeting, that's probably not including the travel time to and then to get to your next one. So as you're trying to put things together, give yourself a break and try to put meetings near each other. So look at what's on the map and who's where, and make sure the numbers are just because they're consecutive numbers doesn't mean they're right next to each other. So really just trying to be conscientious of that helps me tremendously. So I'm not running up and down the stairs and across the hall just to get to 15-minute meetings that I then miss. So that's just been really helpful to me. I also I don't know if the conference is going to have a tote bag this year. If they don't, I'd suggest bringing one. And I just carry one of these notebooks, and this is my APAP notebook. So I'll just go through, and every page, every time I'm meeting with someone, I take notes, and I take their material and I put it in that bag. I bring a copy of my brochure so that people can see what what my seasons look like, and they can get a feel for the aesthetic. You might want to bring a link to your tech information because people want to know if you're new, they want to know what's the size of your venue. Is it a proscenium? Is it black box? I mean, that's going to help them plan and provide the best for you. You never know the climate that's going to be in the hall. So I wear comfortable shoes. I wear sneakers no matter what. And I wear comfortable clothing, and I have a sweater usually because it can get cold in there or it can get really hot. And then if you've got a meeting or there's showcases and professional development that are concurrent and you need to step out, you're just trying to keep everything with you. I keep it in that bag. Make sure you have the Wi-Fi password for the expo hall. I even bring a battery charger to charge my phone because by the end of the day, it's just drained when you're in that building. Those are just some of the thoughts that I had.
Excellent practical tips that get you through. So I'm gonna want to open this up for questions to everyone here, but I guess before we do that, let me just ask and ask you to keep it short so we have some more time for questions. But just thinking about your Expo Commons experiences with APAP, is there a memory that sticks out as really important?
I'll mention that I had a conversation with a presenter that I really liked, and she had told me how she had just had this meeting with a newer agent, and that during the whole conversation, the agent was texting and looking over the presenter's shoulder. And it reminded me also then of a time that I had a conversation with, or that I had a meeting with a presenter, and it was him and his team. And while I'm having the conversation, his team is really engaged, and he just kind of looks up, wanders off. I would say, and the team apologized for the presenter doing that. I would say that if you are engaging in these conversations, to please be present and be respectful of the person you're having that conversation with. There's a lot of distractions that are happening around you, and sometimes it's really tempting to just kind of look over the other person. Just really try to stay focused, be with the person that's there. They've made time to talk to you, you've made time to talk to them. So really just be connected and be present in that conversation.
Thank you for
You know,
that.
now I do a little more Zooms with venues rather than just phone calls. But back in the day, it was sometimes my first time meeting someone in person. So I'm kind of tall. So there was a lot of people being like, "Oh, you're tall." And I'd be like, "Oh, I am tall." Like there's just a very human thing of like people coming to your little booth house and then seeing that even some folks, who I haven't seen in a year, there's just it can feel very human, and that part is really, really nice.
Can I say something?
Hi, Juan. Yeah, sure, but I was gonna just
Hello.
raise up some questions here. Do you mind?
Oh,
So can we make sure that we get to those first?
okay, no, no, no. You go to the questions. It's okay.
Thank you very much. So there have been some questions about wanting to hear more. Ken, just as an APAP unrepresented artist, your approach, uh, your approach for people and to form relationships and take notes. Do you want to respond to that? And then I'm going to turn it
Oh,
over to Neil.
well, yeah, like the research ahead of time, and if it's at all possible, I've done a lot. I guess the system of mentoring has changed, but when folks, it was the very first conference they'd attend was APAP. I'd go, wow, that's going to be tough. If they've been to the old Arts Midwest or a Max or a WA or an Arts Northwest, they've already met some people. They get a sense of how that goes. Another thing that may work for people at the beginning, in addition to doing the research and reaching out as appropriate, it's really tough if you go, oh, it starts on Friday, I'll get there Friday, I'll fly in Friday. Boy, I'm arriving Tuesday because I'm also doing things on Wednesday and Thursday night with showcasing. And Friday I have a big showcase. And then by Saturday, when the exhibit hall starts, I like being done with the showcasing. So I can, even if I don't even have a booth, I just can relax and be just like what Sandy was saying. When I'm there, I try to be very present. I don't get all the sleep that I like, but I get some sleep, and I try to get there early in the morning. I stay as late as I can, and just try to be present throughout, whether I'm or I not necessarily have a table or booth in the exhibit hall now, but I still will go in, like say like Rhinelander has space. I see friends who are maybe it can be a little slow. I can visit with them and actually direct people to where my friends are, where like just like what Steve was saying, that people may be looking for something. I was at Max last week and I was at a a curating session, and somebody who I've never talked to before, it wasn't a fit with me, when they mentioned what their mission was, I went up and said, here's some folks that you might want to be interested in. And I sent an email and, just try to be helpful. So.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions and then, see what other folks want to share.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Krista. So there were a few questions in the chat, and I think we got answers to most of the questions, but I can, let's see if I want to go back to Kate. Kate, I think your question was answered by Mark regarding setting up meetings. But again, that goes back to utilizing the attendee list that you get in advance, doing your research, as everyone has mentioned, and trying to make those connections in advance. Does that answer your question fully?
I think Kate had to leave.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
But just to second that, I'll start sending meeting invites usually in late November. So, there's an attendee list that comes out once you're registered. And I might start the research sort of earlier in November and then reaching out to people sort of in later November. We might do one targeted e-blast to people we've worked with before, just to sort of share our booth if we've got different events going on. But all of my meeting requests are going to be personal. If it's somebody I haven't worked with before, within that first paragraph, I'm going to say a little bit about who we are and sort of why I think they should meet with me. So it might be, I see you do youth and family programming. We bring a lot of work to your area. We work with, these venues in the state. Okay, here's more about who we are. So knowing that people get a lot of emails and just trying to make that case that I've looked up their venue after getting that attendee list. I've seen what they're programming. I think there's something that might be a fit. And with some folks, they might not have a strong youth and family theater programming, but I see they do a music series that I think one of our music artists might be a good fit for. And with some of those, I'm reintroducing our agency because we're more known for theater. So saying we mostly do theater. However, we're working with this great artist that, might be a fit for this. So sometimes what you do might resonate with a small piece of their programming. So you might have to really bring that to the front. And a lot of people don't get back to us. A lot of people don't get back till later, and that's just part of it. So I'm always emailing way more people than I hear back from. And then I use Calendly for the setups of the meetings. And that has worked really well. My lovely colleague prefers to have more control. So she does not use Calendly, which is also a fine way to do it, particularly if you have got some time to block off, or if you want the flexibility to have longer meetings with some people and shorter meetings with others.
Thank you, Sarah. Ken, yes.
I was just looking, I think you mentioned it, but I see the question from Tyrone in the chat. And yeah, just like everybody is saying, like Sarah, Sandy, Steve, it's all cumulative. It's a long game. So how do I approach people to form a relationship? And I don't take notes. It's all in my head. And I look at the follow-up as I'll be back next year sometimes. I don't want to clutter up people's lives. I have the envelope where I send them poems with a handwritten note, but I look up who these people are. So I know that at least in my mind, there's a fit. So if I see them, especially if they're a new person, and it can be anywhere. I'm not, just like Sandy says, I'm not going to be pitching, but there's a deli across the street that I ran into somebody that was on my list of 20 or 30 people I really wanted to run into. I saw him for a minute, but that was enough to just go, oh, okay, that's a name to the face. And I ended up working there the next year. That's all I needed, was just to see him. Although I think he would have been in touch anyway. But just, you do the work ahead of time and you just let it be and don't push it too hard. Every time I try for a shortcut, it takes twice as long. That's what I've learned. So I go real slow, but I persist and keep showing up.
Ken mentioned do the homework ahead of time. it's important. And as presenters, knowing, I love Calendly now. At first I thought, how impersonal, and now I'm like, it's 2 a.m. and I'm working on this because that's the only time I'm getting it done right now. I can schedule those appointments and I know when they're available and I don't have to send an email and wait for a response. And so I can just keep going. But what I really wanted to mention was we get these emails from agents, artists, managers about their programming, their rosters, and as much as you can, because we get a lot, and as much as you can, I look through them because you never know what to expect. You never know. I mean, I am remembering just from this past regional conference, I can describe Sandy's roster and the e-blast that she sent out as well as Sarah's. And there were things that really struck my interest. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it just was something that I knew and I can jot down if I was going to have a meeting with them to say, this is what I really want to talk about. Then you can tell me what you think I want to talk about, or vice versa. But that there's an exchange, a dialogue. I get Ken's postcards and a packet of postcards every so often, and I look forward to them because it's very personal and it's very unique, and that captures my attention and keeps him top of mind. So little things, and unfortunately, I'll get emails that say, this is your third and final email that I'm sending out. And that's not a repercussion. It's not a negative. It's just letting you know, hey, I'm not going to remind you again. If you're interested, just know that. And that's fair. If you're an agent or manager new to this and you think it's going to be helpful to send an email every day or every week for 2 months, don't, please. Because I've ended up emailing an artist back saying, I know what you're trying to do. You're spending a lot of money to be here. It's not helping me want to meet with you by having to filter your emails every single day or every single week. So it's a challenge. We're all trying to accomplish something very similar in this industry, and that's to match the artist with the audience.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Steve. Juan, if you're still with us, would you like to ask your question?
Good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Juan.
No, there was no question. I just wanted to say that, well, that I will come from Sevilla, and I have a flamenco dance company, and I have a flamenco center of arts where people from all over the world come to learn flamenco, also from the US. And actually, I know from these conference because they are artists from the US that came to my school. They are singers or dancers, and they want to enrich their art, and then they come to learn at my school. And they told me about this conference, a singer from the US, and she said, you really should come, and gave me the information. And for me, it's like just the first time. And I'm really looking forward. And I just wanted to say thank you for all this information, because for me, it's the first time to get to a conference like that, because I'm mainly dancer and choreographer. And thank God I will come with some support with somebody from the US that helps me to manage all this. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Juan. And we look forward to seeing you. And we will have a few more road to conference activities, and we'll talk about that a little bit more before we close to help you make sure that you have all the information we provide in advance of seeing us all in New York. There was a comment posed in the chat, and Mr. Mojo, I'm going to ask you also to talk a little bit about this, if you don't mind. A key element of the conference are the showcases that happen, and showcases, as Krista mentioned, happen at the Hilton and also throughout the city. APAP does not produce showcases. They are independent showcases, but it is a major component of the conference. And I think many of our agents here and presenters, they obviously attend showcases and produce showcases. And Mr. Moja, I'd like to ask if you have anything additional you want to share about showcasing.
Honestly, showcasing is one of the most critical elements of an act coming to APAP. There's no way to know what you do unless people see it. And performing at a showcase that's well crafted is incredibly important. I think you can buy a booth, you can walk around, you can meet lots of people, you can tell them what you do, you can show them pictures. But as far as I know, in my decades of participating in the performing arts, performance itself is the best sales tool you have. It is enormously expensive because of where we are at where we are conferencing. The costs are in many ways astronomical, but if you do your business plan, quite often you can realize that your investment will be returned if you sell a single show quite often. And if that is not the case, you may want to revisit your business plan. This is a market that is costly to serve because touring, even for a one-off, requires travel and lodging and production and tech, not to mention a performance fee and salaries, etc. So I encourage everyone, review your business plan with a mentor if necessary, and do consider actually presenting your product and making people who attend your showcase a product of your product. There's nothing else that sells your show better than your show itself. So keep in mind that showcasing is an essential element of this business process. It's part of the supply chain, and it is often a critical element between talking about it, thinking about it, or actually doing it.
You know, yes, and because I have booked shows because of the showcase I've seen. And if this is your first time attending as an artist or agent, and maybe Mr. Mojo can share, or at the next Road to Conference highlighting showcasing, you might want to just see what it's all about first. I have gone to a number of showcases. I've gotten on the bus that they've paid for to take me to the venue. I'm the only one on the bus. I'm the only one at the venue. They spent, it was a restaurant, food for days. You can tell the other people there were their family, and everyone was like on me, watching me, and it was very uncomfortable. I felt more uncomfortable for them because I know how much money they spent. I mean, I don't, but I know that it was a ton of money to do all of that. It was very elaborate, and that return on that investment was not there. And that's not the only case. That happens. You're competing with a lot of others. And that kind of goes with the booth and the expo, because there are concurrent showcases or performances that you might want to go leave the expo, and you're making your decision. That's where the grace comes in. You're making decisions on your to do what you need to do. It might even just be, I'm going to bed and taking a 20-minute power nap because right now I'm so unfocused at this point. So give yourself grace while you're trying to figure all of this out.
Actually, before another second goes by, Steve, I want to thank you for all your comments today. And I hope that they will distill out your comments as a presenter, because in all my years, your delivery today was the most valuable, most gracious, and most complete description of a presenter's role in the industry and in the conference. I thank you for that. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, but we don't really get to sit down and talk to each other. But I was so impressed with what you shared today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Are there any additional questions before we close?
Yes, I have a question.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi. I'm wondering, when do they announce the selection for the pitch session?
Thank you, Krista.
Yeah, I was going to ask Willie to. Willie, what's the timeline on that?
Yes, we will be sending out notifications by the end of this week. So thank you for your patience.
Okay, with that, Willie, I think there was a closing slide for us. Thank you, Willie. And then for next steps, as always, this conference is a members conference, so please be sure to renew your membership or join. Hotel reservations are online until December 13th. And please join us at our upcoming office hours sessions. They will be happening bi-weekly on Tuesdays starting October 8th. And our next Road to Conference session will be featured on showcasing at the conference. And that's coming up. Please look for more information about that. And lastly, we'd love for you to fill out our conference survey, our session survey for today to share your feedback about this session. And with that, we just want to thank everyone for being with us today, especially our panelists. And we look forward to seeing you on our Road to Conference. Thank you, everyone.
You.